I was going to ask you about the talk box. That became such an iconic musical instrument. I was a teenager in the 70s and I remember Rocky Mountain Way and I don't think there was a teenager alive that didn't know Peter Frampton and what he did with the talk box. How did all that come about?
That's a great story. In 1939, Alvino Ray, W6UH, that I used to talk to on 20 meters back in the 70s, Alvino Ray did the first talking thing. He had a throat microphone. He took one of these throat microphones and put it on his wife. She was a singer with the King family. You remember these things? You'd strap them on because the planes were so loud, a microphone didn't work. So it would pick up the vibrations of the nodules and these little carbon elements, and that's their microphone lead. What did Alvino, the ham radio guy, do? He turned it backwards. He plugged the output of his guitar amp in here and it would modulate his wife's voice as she sang, and it sounded like his guitar was singing. And he called it the singing guitar. He'd hide her behind a curtain. That was a big deal. 1939. Okay, over, done. 1950, there was a steel guitar player by the name of Pete Drake. And he'd taken he was a gadget guy. Most steel guitar players are. He would take a 3-inch speaker, put it in a little box, and a little piece of hose on it. And he did a song. It was topped the hit parade in 1950, a song called Forever. And that box was in his studio. Joe Walsh, a good friend of Bill West, who works in that studio, Bill and Dottie West invited Joe to come to Nashville and record his Barnstorm album. And he saw this little thing in the corner, and that is what he recorded on Rocky Mountain Way. Didn't have to be very loud in the studio, okay? Okay, fast forward years, though. We're in Marissa, in my plant. We're putting all this together. He wanted a Mellotron. We were the distributor for Mellotron in the early years, Heil Sound, and getting all the right guitar amps and all this together for Joe. And he said, "What are we gonna do about that box thing?" I said, "What box thing? What are we talking about here?" And then I said, "Oh boy." And so what we did, I took a 250-watt driver, made the right kind of plumbing for a piece of hose, and that was the original talk box. We put it in a paper sack, put it down on the floor, tied a rubber band. It looked like there was a wine bottle down there. Joe really liked that. And so that was the original talk box. And we did the tour, the first piece of that tour. But I'm going, we got to do something. And so we built 5 prototypes. They weren't metal, they were fiberglass boxes. But anyway, that's what Joe uses even today. In Marissa, my dad took care of a lot of houses. He would rehab these houses and sell them to the miners. Peabody Coal had their largest mine operation at Marissa. And 2 of the houses were rented by roadies. One of them was the tour manager for Humble Pie, and the other one was Joe's tour manager, Crinkle. And so we're putting all this together, and Mick Brigden come to me today and he says, "Hey, I want to get married. What can I do?" I said, "Well, wait a minute. You got a green card, right?" "Yes." "Okay, why don't we do it at our house?" So we had a big old Victorian house. I played the organ because I had a Hammond organ in it. And he and were married in our home. Fast forward that for about a year or two, and I get a call from Penny McCall. "Hey, Penny, how you doing?" "I'm doing good." How's Mick?" "Well, we split up." "Okay. I'm with Peter Frampton now." "Oh, you kind of wanted to do that in the beginning, maybe." "What can I do for you?" She said, "I need a Christmas present for Peter. Don't send me a guitar. He's got a lot of them." You know what I did. I sent her a talk box. Do I have to write the rest of Peter's history? No, you know it. And he knows it. And I appreciate that he talks about it a lot in a lot of his interviews about me giving him that for Christmas. And so, yeah, we become really good friends. I was at his last concert that he did here. You know, he's pretty much hung it up. And I had the packing slip I'd saved all these years. I had the packing slip where I had sent the talk box to Penny. After about a 2-minute cry between he and Sarah and I, oh gosh, I was very emotional because it was his career on this piece of paper. Well, no, it's not a career. Well, you take the talk box away from Peter Frampton. Well,
Sure.
you have a great, really darn good guitar player, but that talk box skyrocketed.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I've always thought Joe Walsh pioneered it into popular music, but Peter Frampton truly made it popular.
Yep.
Yeah.
And now, you know, Slash and 9 Inch Nails and on and on. I hear them in commercials even. Yeah, but they're out there. But again, how did I know to do that? I tell everybody, ham radio. What did that got to do? That taught me how to do things, and I'm still doing them. And we just have to get people to build more and do more. So, by the way, here's a great picture. I really like this picture. That is the original talk box that I gave him, or I gave Penny. He still carries it with him.
Wow.
The signature on it, the date and so on of the album that he used it on, and he still carries it. In fact, it's funny when I would go to see him and stuff. In his dressing room, he'd have this couple guitars and to practice on in that talk box. And I said, "Can I see that?" He said, "Yes." And he always held on to it. I said, "I'm not going to steal it. I'm going to make sure you don't." He said, "Well, I know this is a big piece of rock and roll history. I just don't want it to go anywhere." He said, "It's not going anywhere." He's always kidding me about that. I said, "Oh, no, you can't have this. You'll run out the door." Fun time. I mean, if you don't have fun, well, then just don't do it and don't get.
Yeah. What's the point otherwise?
Yeah, exactly. And so many guys, Slash and all these guys using it, and they become good friends of mine.